What if the key to powerful leadership starts with a broken heart? In this episode of A Call to Leadership, I'm joined by my dear friends and fellow leaders, Travis Revelle and Joe Thompson, as we unpack one of the most misunderstood teachings of Jesus for those of us who are in business. Blessed are those who mourn. It's not about sadness. It's about the kind of mourning that doesn't paralyze us, but propels us into a deeper compassion, shared clarity, and uncommon strength as business leaders. Together, we're going to explore what it means to lead with a heart that feels the weight of responsibility, the pain of others, and the cost of care. You'll hear real stories where mourning birthed mercy, where grief became fuel for grace, and how holy sorrow can shape our leadership. Because in a world where pressure is often mistaken for power, we believe it's the tender-hearted leader who transforms the room. So wherever you are, in your office, in your car, or in the tension between success and surrender, lean in. This one's for the leaders who are not afraid to feel and to love radically. Hello, fellas.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nate. Morning, Travis.
Morning.
It's good to see both of you.
It's good to see you as well.
And it's good to hear. It's good to have our listener, our viewer with us today. When they see the progression of topics that we're talking about, all these blessings that Jesus is talking about, you say it's an interesting conversation. It's not something that you normally would hear on a leadership podcast about business, family, and life, but it's so relevant when we break it down and apply it to our business lives and everything else, who we are as entrepreneurs, right? And today's topic, no less of a barn burner in the world of business and life than Jesus' second beatitude, second clue, if you will, in this journey of what it means to be blessed. Before we bring it up, though, it's important to just step back a second and explain why we're even talking about these things, right? This just unfolding, if you will, of Jesus's early ministry. And he starts with this word, blessed are. And it's like, okay, guys, if we're going to be kingdom-minded in how we do business, we should pay attention to what Jesus says and what it means for us, because those clues unlock massive ability to lead worthily. And that's really what we want, right? So this idea of be blessed are, it's this word macarious. We've been talking about a lot in our community, and G3, it's like it's just a word we throw around now. It's kind of cool where you can throw Greek words around, right? But it means that you have a life joy that's not dependent on external circumstances, that it can't be extinguished, can't be taken away, it can't be stolen from you. Not that you don't care about what's happening around the world, not like you're numb. It's just that you're centered, you're focused, and you're indestructible. Wouldn't you want to follow somebody like that?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you want to follow somebody like that?
For sure.
I would. So he goes through these 8 steps, if you will. Right? I'm going to show you how to live it. I'm not going to just make a claim. I'm going to show you step-by-step ways for you to experience this so that when you do lead, you won't be defeated. You won't be broken. You'll be strong, resilient, courageous.
And he takes all these things that would normally feel like negative connotations.
Yeah.
And he just
Flips them
around on you.
So the second one, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. In that arena, wherever he was, preaching and sharing, and I guarantee you there were some people who were struggling with some major issues in life, right? They were mourning, having some challenges, and likely they're like, okay, I don't feel very blessed right now, right? And I think it's important for us to understand what he means by that in the original context. So here's I'm gonna share a little bit of this, and I want you just to listen. So the original language, this idea of mourning, mourn, is to grieve deeply, especially over loss or sin. Mourning is not just personal sorrow, friends. It's the brokenness in the world and the distance between God's kingdom and earthly reality. It's pretty strong.
Very.
And it applies. It applies for us as leaders. It applies for us in our business world, in our families, in our communities, in our relationship with God. So I'd like to break that down with you. When you hear the mourning, okay, this not just personal sorrow, but a connection with that. What are some of the first things that come to your mind?
Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Having empathy, right? And I think you can look at it in each of the four categories, right? Like empathy for, let's take it from a leadership standpoint, right? Like empathy for your team, empathy for your customer, your end user, and how do you translate that into action, right? How do you make something better for those individuals that you serve as a leader?
Yeah. Joe?
So when I think of mourn, I immediately think of the heritage in that I come from, where I don't know if you've ever been to an Italian funeral, but there is a lot of crying and wailing and verbose mourning. That's why immediately when we started on this, I said it's going to feel like a heavy subject to me, because that's most of the exposure that I've had to it is loss. Not being able to overcome a feeling of loss.
Yeah. Empathy it's an interesting aspect of life and business, and how Jesus is calling us to share in the struggles and the grief that others experience. That was a main focus of his journey, and that was one of the reasons why he was so attractive, because people felt seen, they felt heard, and they had never felt that way before from other, air quotes, religious leaders, right? Teachers. In fact, they felt as though they should be ashamed, outcast. And he flipped the script on that. He said, no, I care. And here's what I'm going to do about it. And for us as leaders, it's such an important piece. The first week we talked about what it means to walk in surrender to God, and surrender in a way into our family, our business partners, our team members, things like that, right? And saying, hey, look, you're not my enemy, you're my friend, right? That's step one. Acknowledge, hey, we're all in this together. And then step two, let's just take a moment in these days that are just moving. We're all busy guys. Things are moving so fast. Just stop. Just stop and say, I know you're not in a great spot right now. I think about it with customers, clients, right? One of the ways I've found to be really connected with my client is to you're going through it. You're this is not the place you want to be. And I want to help you. I desire to help you because I feel your pain. In fact, that happens on, politicians. You ever notice politicians? They, if they use that kind of language and they mean it, more people bind around them. Mm-hmm.
Look, I think if you want to be a successful leader, or you want to be successful in sales, you have to have empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in, if you're selling something, you have to put yourself in your customer's shoes and understand what pain they feel. You need to understand and be able to feel it, right? And then provide a solution for that. That is the best way to sell anybody anything, right? Because you're providing value to that person. You're helping them fix a problem. So if you're listening to this and you're in sales or you want to be in sales, empathy, I think, is one of the top skill sets you can have, right? From a personality standpoint. If you're a leader of an organization, having empathy and being able to understand the pain points that your team are going through, acknowledging it, right? Because I think a lot of leaders don't acknowledge that something bad is happening, right? They want to gloss over it. They want you to look at the shiny object that they're going to put out there, right? But if you have a real conversation with your team and you are vulnerable enough to say, look, I know this isn't working, right? Let's figure out a way to make it work together. You're going to get so much buy-in from your team, and they're going to follow you, and you're going to be one of those leaders that they remember, right? People don't leave leaders like that. They don't leave leaders who have empathy and try to help. Even if you can't fix the scenario, but you just acknowledge it and you say, I understand it, let's try, and you put an effort towards it. I think this, on the surface, when you read this, very few people would say, blessed are those who mourn, have anything to do in the business world, right? You would never put those two concepts together.
Not the terminology for sure.
But when you really look at it, this is showing you how to be a leader. It's showing you how to drive business sales. If you're in a service industry, right? If you're in a service industry, you have to have empathy, right? If you're creating a product, you have to have empathy, right? Like I think this is enlightening on a whole different level on being strategic of something that on the surface absolutely has nothing to do with business.
Amen. And the follow up with that, for they will be comforted. This is a promise, right? Jesus models it. He models it for us to receive it and then to turn around and model it to others. And one key point about the sales piece, sales is generally adversarial, right? Because you're trying to take something from me, my time and my money, right? Two things. So I don't know if there's enough of a value proposition for that, because maybe it's just about your quota. Maybe it's just about whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish for you. But when you begin with, you know what? I do have those needs, right? I need to have a certain threshold met to keep my job or to pay my bills. But maybe if I don't make that my posture and my starting point, maybe if I make my posture my starting point, look, I care. And to genuinely, sincerely, and this is the difference, right? These are the game-changing difference on who gets that, not only the buy-in. I had a mortgage company for 10 years. And I had loan officers who would, charge like an insane amount of money in terms of like how much on the front end of a deal. I'm like, you're never going to see that person again. Like, I don't care. I'm like, really? Well, you're probably not going to be in this business very long.
Right.
Right? And it's like, start with the care. Start with the empathy. Start with, I know that you're hurting and I understand, and that means something to me. And I want to do something about it. Now, whether or not you do business with me, this is the game changer, is not as relevant to me as it is that I help you, if I can, to find your solution.
Because you immediately disarm them.
You go from adversary to ally.
You immediately disarm them.
And we're talking, but here's the caveat: sincere and genuine, because people can see through a sales pitch or a script that's just canned.
Well, especially in a sales pitch or even a negotiation, right? Because the defenses are already up, right? So your spidey senses are heightened. But if you go into a negotiation, right, and you have this, which is the exact opposite of what you see portrayed, right? Like in any negotiation, it's always, right, like, I'm not going to break. You know what I mean? I'm not going to break. And so if you think about it, the person you're going in that negotiation with is coming in with that attitude, right? And if you come in with the exact opposite, now you've thrown them completely off their game. number one, right? Because now they don't know how to react to that scenario. But two, you know, I always say any good deal, both people have to leave thinking they left something on the table. You know, you have to have empathy for these other people that you're doing business with, because you can't sell your soul for business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we, much like how the meaning of these Beatitudes change when we get in deep with them, a lot of things that you've heard in business and how to do business is wrong.
Absolutely.
And when you throw everybody in the same arena and they're all playing by the same rules and everyone's doing it the wrong way, then it seems like, oh, well, that's the way it needs to be done, right? But if you change the meaning of what you're supposed to be doing when you're there, and you show empathy to a customer, to a coworker, or someone who you manage or whatever, it changes the arena. Now is different, right? So you're still coming with your sword, and you know, I got a whole different set of empathy and rules for you. And I think, you know, much like this changed the way people looked at what being mournful was, it will change the way we look at business going forward. If we can show people, hey, there is success in doing this, you know, doing it this new way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you ever want to move anything forward with someone who is, you know, either adversarial, like Nate was talking about, or like they're just having a terrible time in their life, if you want to move them forward to success, you have to comfort them first. Mm-hmm. Like they have to feel comforted. And that's what creates the depth of a company. Like if I just beat you down over something, you know, you're just floating on the surface of the company. As soon as you find something else, you're probably going to jump ship.
Yeah.
But every time I offer you understanding or grace or compassion or comfort, that deepens your relationship with the company. It makes you, you know, you're not just an employee of the company now, you're immersed into the culture of what the company is. So comforting first is not always what you see in business. But again, we got to change the rules.
Well, because I think a lot of people equate comforting somebody with weakness, mm-hmm. right? And what takes more strength, right? Mm-hmm. To just beat somebody over the head and be like, do it my way because I said it, or to really truly take the time to understand what that person is going through, what's happening, how to help them. What is a stronger individual, right? Like, I would say it's a much stronger individual who can take the time and actually cares about the individual, rather than somebody who just takes the easy way out and who is weak and who just either uses a title or a threat, right? Or whatever it is that they're using, the stick instead of the carrot, you know, to lead somebody. Real strength comes in, like, look, if you're a father, right? If you're a parent, right? Like those parents that are out there, right? The strength that comes in when your child is having a meltdown, right? Like sitting with them, understanding, calming them down, and not just saying, you're going to do it because I said you're going to do it, right? Like, or if you keep crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about, right? Like, I think probably a lot of how our parents raised us, right? Like, the real strength comes in with acknowledging, like, oh, this is real. What you're feeling is real. You know, how do we move through this? How do we get through this? How do you fix the situation and not just put a Band-Aid on the situation? That takes real strength.
It does. Yeah. I was going to say the same thing regarding the weakness piece. I'm glad you brought that up. And it gets me to think about the easy route is to not do this, right? The easy route is to just keep everything, air quotes again, professional. But we're emotional creatures. I mean, why are we okay in a business setting or any setting with emotions of joy when you get a new contract or you meet a new quota or you open a new location, but it's not okay to share in the emotions of sadness or frustration if things aren't going the way that you had anticipated them, right? And coupling that with our own vulnerability as leaders. Because I think part of the flip side of that, the flip side argument is, well, if I open myself up to mourning and walking in this sense of brokenness and heartfelt connection, I'm going to have an organization full of crybabies, whiners, and people who see me as ineffective at standing up and being strong. And again, that is the antithesis, right? False narrative, right? It's a narrative, though, that's prominent. It's a prominent narrative, but it's a false narrative because, as you said, that vulnerability is the true pathway to courageous strength. Because then it says, hey, look, we're not, obviously there's appropriateness for everything, right? However, I'm not going to discount that you're a human being, right? And we're not machines. And it's okay to have a moment. And for us also, by the way, I was watching a program the other night. It's like the Lord of the Rings series, and a lot of people don't like it, long and short. But there was one scene in one of the episodes where one of the characters, some of his troops had died, and he was going through the funeral ritual, and the close-up on him was with some tears. A very strong character. And you think, why is that important for the screenwriters and the directors and everyone for us to experience that? Why is that? Because he's mourning over the loss of something very important. He's doing it publicly, and that is precious strength that we as human beings desire to see more of in our leadership. It's okay. Not only is it okay, but it opens the doors to say, you are, in a way, comforting me through your own grief for shared sorrow. And that's a game changer in business. It's a game changer in our families.
Yep.
Move over to the family realm. Acknowledging and creating space for emotions in our families, whether it's with our children, with our spouse, our siblings, our parents, and comforting with our presence, not just answers. Sometimes, you guys know this, we've all been in the marriage realm for a long time, and we're fix-it guys too, right?
Right.
Some things you can't fix. But you can be present.
Sometimes even if you can fix it, it's not what they're looking for. I just wanted to tell you. I just wanted to get it.
So I always do this thing, and it's do you want comfort or solutions?
Give options.
What are you looking for? Comfort or solutions? Because if you don't, right? Like what I have found with people, and it's not just my wife. It's people that are close to me. Is I am a fix-it guy, right? And I'm a pusher, right? I will push you to be the best, whether you want to be the best or not. Like I am going to try to get you to do that. And so what I've found is there's been times in my life that like I have completely misread a situation and somebody is just looking for comfort, and I'm throwing all kinds of solutions and plans at them, and they're not mentally at that spot yet to be able to process. They're still in the mourning stage of whatever it is that they're going through. And so do you want comfort or solutions? Because I can provide either one, but I can't read your brain. You know what I mean? Like I need you to tell me which way to take this. And I think that even that is applicable to this when we're talking about business, right? Like if I have an employee that is really upset, like I will say that. Do you want comfort or solutions? Like, do you want to just talk about it? Like we can talk about it and I can be your sounding board. If you want solutions, I can help you kind of work through it, but I'm not going to push myself onto you.
Yeah.
I think there's some self-regulating emotion, and I want to explain this because I don't want to sound like you're a robot. But on my personal Be Holy journey, right? For me, it wasn't about not feeling a certain emotion. It was about recognizing it and then putting it in the place that it should be put. So it's easy, like when an employee messes up, to like yell at them because you're probably the first emotion you might feel is anger or disappointment or, idiot, which was one of my favorites back in the day.
It won't show up on a Great Summit or G3 shirt.
So, it's okay to feel that in the beginning. But I've noticed, like, on my Be Holy journey, that I allow myself to feel that, and then I just move it over to the side, and I keep on the path of, being empathetic, comforting people, being there for someone. And, there are people that will try to take advantage of that, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be aware of that. But I see it more as a strength now than ever before. Mm-hmm. Being patient with people and not steamrolling over them.
It's an important point you make about empathy, especially for those of us who have put empathy in a box, because we did grow up with just be strong. I remember when I was 12, my stepdad's like, okay, it's time to stop crying. I mean, it's, that stuff that's we're done with that stuff. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you guys said, it's generationally, that was kind of the thing back then, right? Every generation has its thing. Not everyone, of course, but that was our situation. And I thought I didn't have empathy. I grew up and then it was compartmentalized, and people would say, oh, you're not very empathetic. You're not very empathetic. And I was like, yeah, I'm not. You're right. And then I realized after I got married, and it took me a long time to realize, actually, even just maybe weeks ago, I realized, no, you're actually very empathetic. You have just created defense mechanisms to shield yourself from pain because of that. The empathy didn't go away. It's just locked up.
Yeah. So
unlock it in appropriate ways. And I think it starts with our relationship with God. Let the safety of that relationship allow us to become brave with all others as it pours out.
Yeah, I think any emotion is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So you try to let emotions that don't follow the path that we're on to atrophy. And not that you don't recognize them, you just don't use them anymore. And I think there comes a time where all of a sudden, you don't feel that anger emotion right off the bat. It's not the one that starts that you have to recognize and move over. You immediately feel the empathetic emotion. And as a man, I was a manager for a long time with lots of people, and every scenario that you can possibly think of has come up. There's a phone call, there's childcare problems and boyfriend problems, and any problem you can think of came up. And I think my success in management was that I usually am very empathetic for people. But where I failed is I didn't show enough empathy for people who created their own problems, right? And, now I know that sometimes people create their own problems because of their own internal workings, the way they grew up, their mental state, so there is a huge level of emotional and spiritual maturity that you need to not only recognize why people do the things that they do, but to lead with that empathy first. You know what I mean?
100%. In fact, I to that point, I always go back to the 9th chapter of Matthew when Jesus sees these crowds. And the scripture says, Jesus saw the crowds and they were helpless and harassed. And then the very next phrase is he had compassion on them. It wasn't he was calling them idiots. It wasn't he was condemning them or saying you should have done something differently. They were helpless because they didn't have what they needed. They were harassed because of all of the the context around them was pushing in and keeping them from living fully, living in this macarious, this spiritual flourishing. And then the next step is compassion. And then the very next verse is, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest to send more workers. In other words, Jesus is saying he wants us to share in his compassion for those who need to be comforted.
Yeah. You know what I love about what happens at Great Summit is how it compares to, the journey that people went on, to find their rabbi or to find a place where they belonged. People weren't scared back then about like being hooked into a religion and having to stay in it. If they found something that made sense to them, they would go on a journey of trying to understand that. And I think sometimes with religion, we get so involved in the religion, we forget about the journey that we should always be on to know Christ better, right? And we allow that journey to take place with, without any kind of guilt or, am I doing the wrong thing because, I've always been taught this way and now I'm looking at it this way. But like we had said before the podcast started, like this has always been this Jesus. Mm-hmm. Like this has always been this guy. And this is the guy we want to follow, right? So learning the origins of, what he was saying and what he was doing and why he was is it's a huge game changer for your life.
Oh yeah.
And
it ties right in.
Yeah.
It ties into to our model, right? G3, grow purposefully. He's teaching us through growing. This is part of the podcast, mm-hmm. right? The podcast is that a lot of, we want our listener, we want you to grow purposefully and then to give generously, right? Because comforting sometimes doesn't have an immediate reward. There's not like, oh, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z happen today, right? But there's massive ROI on it, right? Because blessed is the generous giver, the Bible says, right? And it's just in different ways. So we're not saying, oh, it's going to multiply 10x or 15x or whatever. It's oftentimes intangible, but then it becomes tangible because I can tell you this, coming full circle to the business world, and you want to have stickiness, you want to have people who are going to give above and beyond, be fully committed, not just combative. You got combative people in your companies. You've got compliant people, right? You've got those two levels, but then you've got committed people. You know what the highest level of commitment you're going to get is when you have the highest level of commitment to them. Mm-hmm. Period. I know it sounds like super simple, but execute that.
Well, I think people get mixed up when they hear the give part. It's not about giving money, right? Like it
could be, but it's not necessarily.
Yeah. Right? It's giving your skills, your talent, mm-hmm. right? Your heart, whatever it is, right? And so in this instance, it's giving your empathy, it's understanding, and at least putting yourself in that person's shoes, right? To understand what they're going through, and then trying to fix the problem and help them.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. And that's really our third G, right? Go love radically. So this idea is, hey, and by the way, it's also a system. We're going to talk all about that in other future episodes, but it starts with love, at least I love the way Paul says love, pillars of love, patience and kindness, right? Okay. Wow. All right. Patient enough to listen to somebody when they're in a spot, even though you've got, KPIs to hit and all this other stuff. It's like, I'm going to do that. And why am I going to do that? Because I've created enough margin as a leader. This is up to us as leaders to create enough margin and space to have empathy.
Yep.
Right? Because if we're not, guess what? We're doing a disservice to everyone who we lead, and we are then less worthy to lead. I'm guilty as charged. I've had a life that's been super thin on margins, and I've been working on redesigning my entire calendar as if God himself set my calendar up. That's a game changer too. Now, granted, I sometimes go in and I'm like, hey, he's not looking. I'm going to fix him and change this. Of course, he's looking. At the end of it all, we desire to spiritually flourish, right? This is what Jesus is saying. This is what I desire for you. This is what I mean, how I'm redefining Macarius. I'm redefining blessing for spiritual flourishing, for divine favor, for the joy of God's presence, even in and through the suffering that we face, and we get to share in walking with others in their suffering, whether it's a customer, whether it's an employee, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a member of our community, whether it's somebody just on the street with a sign, and say, I'll walk with you. And sometimes, what does Jesus say? If someone says, walk with me a mile, what does he say? Walk 2. It's good, guys. Thanks for having us here in this wonderful experience as always. And next week, or the next time we meet, blessed are the meek. Wow. I can't wait to hear your opinions on that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.